Good evening. My name is Yuri Eliahu. I'm with NGO Incorporated. Is that better? I'm with NGO, and I will be speaking to the development area, not Parcel E2 tonight, but really to address the plan for moving forward with the development footprint which lies outside of this E2 area. Next slide. Okay, there have been numerous studies done over the years, as others have alluded to. We've analyzed over the last several years many pieces of information, over 100 documents, including documents that were addressed earlier, and a lot of subsurface information that has been collected regarding the existing conditions out there on the Candlestick Point and Hunters Point parcels that are being developed. We have developed conceptual mitigation and foundation recommendations to address the conditions that have been observed out there, and also are in the process of developing detailed exploration plans for moving forward. Okay, I apologize in advance. Some of this may be repetitious given the previous speakers. But what this figure shows is sort of the old edge of Hunters Point here and Candlestick Point. And this heavy line is the current edge. And so virtually everything in here, as Tom said earlier, is fill. Next slide. Okay. These lines here are the bedrock elevations, the elevations to rock. And again, you can see how the rock dives down as would be expected from these ridges. Next slide. Okay, these are contours of the base of the fill, that is the bottom of the man-made fill that's out there. Again, it's just to illustrate some of the characterization we've done in order to come up with foundation and land development concepts. Okay, so what do we know? We know that the soil and bedrock conditions vary widely, both between the two sites and within each of the two sites, that is Candlestick and Hunters Point. That the depth to groundwater in the flat area ranges from about 6 to 10 feet. And the fills can, in localized areas, get up to about 70 feet thick. Obviously, the thicker fill is near the shoreline because that's where the bedrock was deepest. The areas that have artificial fill are currently mapped as potentially liquefiable, and therefore, in accordance with California Geological Survey, have to be explored further, have to be addressed, and a mitigation plan has to be put together. The fill at Hunters Point, Candlestick Point, unlike some of the other fill around the bay, does contain some bedrock fragments and contains a mixture of some gravels and clay sands and some other materials. There are, however, as been mentioned, some fills that are sandy and loose and susceptible to liquefaction. And during an earthquake, some settlement can result from that liquefaction. So what will be done to address it? First of all, as I mentioned, there will be focused additional subsurface exploration to quantify the liquefaction potential and to put together the final detailed work plan. Where we encounter potentially liquefiable material, there will be a combination of mitigation measures. Tom described those, and Frank, I think, went further into it. We can remove and replace some or all of that material. Again, these are in areas that are not contaminated. We can densify in place, and we can design foundations that would resist the loads imposed by liquefaction. Some other techniques may be employed if there are larger areas of liquefaction. The development areas were divided into many sub-areas for the purpose of a geotechnical remedial work plan. Again, you can see E2 is excluded from this, but these areas each have sort of a mitigation plan, a plan to address future settlements and future liquefaction. These crosshatch areas are areas where we're proposing surcharge. Surcharge is a temporary fill that's placed to place a load on the soils so that they would compress, they would consolidate, and when that fill is removed, there would be little or no expected additional settlement. So I'm not going to go through all this, but this is to illustrate that for each sub-area, we have created a description of existing conditions, a description of expected performance for utilities and buildings, and some discussion as to projected foundation types for each of those areas. As you might imagine, the foundations range from very shallow foundations to deep pile foundations depending on building loads and depth of fill and so forth. Next. These are more of these descriptions. There's one more after this one. And that concludes my prepared comments.